thank you for being with us today, Brad. And I know that, like you said in the Michael Mayer 7 levels, that it's success, suicide. So can you, and not to recap it, but those of you who are watching or listening right now, Brad is in the waiting room of the hospital as his wife got into a car accident 3 months ago and is now having some repercussions from that. So if he steps away, that is why. So Brad, thank you for jumping on here and continuing to add value to that. What I would love to see this be really is a story about you, of the successes that you've gotten, you traveling, your passion. You obviously are very passionate and successful with that. And then also promote and plug in where people have the opportunity to see you live on July 9th. So before we get into that, we're speaking with Brad Korn. Brad, Independence, Missouri. Where the heck is Independence?
Kansas City.
Okay.
It's a suburb of Kansas City. If Independence was known for anything, it would be our president, Harry S. Truman. That's where he lived when he was president of the United States.
Very cool. So those of you who want to put that out there, that he's very active on his team still, and he's got some fantastic, capable people behind him. So any referrals or questions or things you can do or have a help or need in the Kansas City region, make sure you reach out to Brad Korn and his team. So Brad, on the phone with you, and got a quick Cliff Note experience of 24 years selling. The last 15 years straight, your team has sold 100 homes, and I say team lightly because it sounds like there's been about 3 of you. You've been the majority of the listing agent, doing it 2 days a week. Extremely, extremely efficient. Your claim to fame has been make the phone ring. That's been a lot of your curriculum with that, and I know that I had the pleasure of meeting you formally a couple months ago when you actually flew around and helped the Philbex out, set up their system. So before we dive into that and everything that we could do to implement immediately into agents and really anybody's business, regardless of what entrepreneurial field they're in, tell me about you, of how you got into real estate. Did you always plan to do this? Is it from another background? So kind of who are you in a Cliff Note version?
Yeah. Well, so, I actually got sucked into the retail side of things, and this is going to date me a little bit, so I know I'm way older than I look, because whenever I tell people this, they're like, oh my gosh, you don't look that old. Yeah. But I was in retail, and if you remember, well, the Gap is still around, if you remember the Gap. We actually had stores around here called County Seat, and it's where they sold Levi's, and they had the wooden big gondola jean things. That's where I started in retail.
Okay.
What's funny about that is that was in junior high, and I started there at the mall. I was a mall rat, and I moved up to assistant manager within like 3 months of being there, and I think I was probably the youngest assistant manager they'd ever had. And then followed that career. I take that back. I started at the Gap and then went to County Seat and moved up through management in County Seat.
Okay.
Ended up in Columbia, Missouri, where I was able to go to MU, which probably wouldn't have happened if I had relied on, my parents couldn't pay for college. We really were not wealthy. They just went to work every day, hard workers, made enough to make a living. So luckily, my promotion to Columbia, Missouri helped me go to college, and so I squeezed college in between working a 40-hour-a-year career in retail management.
Okay.
Got lucky that my brother hooked up with some guys in Kansas City that sold T-shirts. They traveled around to the World Series, Super Bowl, NBA. Whenever you get to the 4 teams that are playing for the championship game, this thing kicks in gear, and it's all the division championship T-shirts and all that. So I got to travel around a lot. Like I was gone for about a month at a time. We'd go live in a hotel for a month. We'd pop up tents on the corners. If you're in Chicago and you're watching this, which we probably have a lot of Florida people on this right now, but like we would have been there for NHL selling a Blackhawk championship stuff.
Yep.
So I got to travel around a little bit. Well, when I started having children, my oldest daughter now had colic on one of those trips, and my wife said, "You're not ever traveling again." Are we doing okay on noise?
Yeah. Good? Yeah. If it's good for you, it's good for me.
Okay, good. So I just want to make sure it's come through okay. So anyway, she's like, you're not traveling again. You're done with that. So the only thing I had to go on, because that was really like I was making a full-time salary because of how much. I mean, we sold like $5 million worth of T-shirts in, you know, a 1 week, 2 week period for the company that I work for.
This is
So
mid to late 20s, mid to early 20s. It sounds like this is.
what's that? Yeah, early 20s. Yeah. Let's just say I lived in Canada for a month when the Toronto Blue Jays were in the World Series, so that'll kind of tell you, because I don't think they've been in it since.
Gotcha.
So anyway, yeah, that was a fun trip in itself. But anyway, so when I came out of that, I had some friends. My friend from high school, his parents were in the title business and the real estate business. And this is going to sound really funny, but literally they had a lake house at the Lake of the Ozarks that was nicer than any house I had ever lived in, and that was their lake house, right? And when I looked out on the dock, they've got 2 or 3 jet skis. They got a couple of boats. And this sounds crazy because I wasn't 21 at the time, but when you opened up their refrigerator, it was like this wall of Coronas in this whole full-size refrigerator, and it was always full. And I was just kind of like, man, this real estate thing, I might give this thing a try, right? So that's when I got into real estate, because they had some really cool stuff, fun living on the lake, all that stuff, and they were making money. So anyway, that's why I got into real estate.
So it's that pursuit of happiness moment when he went and asked the guy what kind of car do you drive and what do you do for a living, and says, I'm going to do that. So,
exactly.
So it sounds like you got into real estate at a pretty young age, went in. So tell me about, fast forward, when did you finally gain momentum and knew that you were pretty elite in this industry? What would you say was a defining moment for you?
Well, yeah, so here's what's interesting about that. My first wife, she actually got us transferred to Minnesota in the retail business. We both worked for the same company.
Okay.
So actually, and that began my marriage, and my child life part of my life started in Wichita, Kansas. She ran one store, I ran the other store. And the first time our regional manager came to visit, because he said, Brad, now you stay away from Eva. Don't be jacking around with her. We can't have any of that stuff. His very first visit, we had to take him out to dinner and tell him we were getting married. Anyway, so she got us transferred to Minnesota, and I was going to try this real estate thing. Well, I didn't have a sphere of influence in Minnesota. I've never lived there before, but it was an opportunity for me to try something different. So I literally got my real estate license, and I sat in a cubicle and just figured out, like, they didn't even have, I mean, I guess they had FSBO things and expired things, but I literally was cutting and pasting and making brochures and doing mailings and trying to get that phone to ring, just sitting there. I remember sitting there waiting, watching for the phone to ring, but nobody knew me.
Right.
So my first 3 years in real estate, let me back up. When I went to real estate school, I thought, based on what I just told you about the lake story, lake house and all that, I thought, I'm going to make like $10,000 every time I sell a house. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to be rich, right? And I'm not really a material person, but I am about lifestyle and being able to travel and not letting my checkbook decide what I can do and can't do.
Sure.
So I thought I was going to make like 10 grand every time I sold a house. Well, my first 3 years in real estate, I did make 10 grand if you add up all 3 years.
Wow.
I made $10,000. It took me 1 year to get my very first commission check. And a guy had prepared me to plan on 6 months without pay. Well, it took me a year to get my first check. And in that first 3 years, I think I accumulated like $10,000, because what we all know is you don't make $10,000. Well, depending on what market you're in the Midwest, you don't make $10,000 a house.
Yeah.
You might net $2,000 at the end of the day. So it took me a little while.
So anyway,
yeah, go ahead.
Was it lack of knowledge, lack of diligence? Was it just a momentum? And what do you think? I mean, is that realistic that obviously now if you went to a brand new market, it wouldn't take you a year. So you've learned some things along the way. What were some of those speed bumps that if you would have, should have, could have known?
Rick, that is an awesome question. I don't know that anybody's ever asked me that. So here's the thing, is I went to work every single day, and I did what I thought were good marketing things that were going to make the phone ring again.
Right.
And it actually brings me to the whole point of why I'm so excited about coming to Florida on the 9th, is that what we are taught in real estate is how to find the next piece of business, but make the business come to you. And for Keller Williams agents, I really love it, because we talk about lead generating and lead receiving, right?
Yep.
So here's where we have all fooled ourselves, guys, and I want you to hear this part. We do things every day that we call lead generating. But at the end of the day, I will tell you that 99.9% of what you do as a lead generation tool is really a lead receiving tool.
Okay.
Because we send out postcards. We get FSBO lists. We call FSBOs. We mail postcards. We drop things off at their house. And what we do is everything we do, we're putting stuff out to the consumer to find the next person that's going to buy or sell, and we're waiting for them to call us. Mm-hmm. That's lead receiving, even though you think you're generating it by throwing a piece of mail out there. This brings us back to the whole 50-to-1 return on investment, because when you throw stuff out there, and actually this just came up on my coaching call this morning, that I can probably help you understand this and put this whole thing into perspective of why this stuff's so important, that what I'm going to share with you is that National Board of Realtors tracks that the average person moves every, 5 to 7 years, right?
Right, if that.
And actually, how long have you been with Keller Williams now?
About 5 years.
About 5 years. So I do think it was probably about 5 years ago or 4 years ago, Gary said at a family reunion that from their numbers, actually, no, it was 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, he said the real number is actually about every 10 years. Were you at that family reunion when he said that from the main stage?
I was not, or didn't retain it, if he did.
Okay. So he did say, we've been tracking it, and guys, it's more like 10 years, and that was the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years that we've been dealing with this crunch that we're in. People had to stay in their houses longer because they were upside down. So it's somewhere between 7 to 10 years. So I'm just going to stick with 10 for easy math. Okay? If there's 100 people on your list that you were going to call, let's say Bold came to town and you're going to call your 100 people this week.
Yep.
Out of those 100 people, if the average person is moving every 10 years, then that means 10 of those 100 people are moving this year, right?
Right, 1 out of 10 turnover. Yep.
Right. So that's 10 of those people are moving this year. That means 1 a month with, it's basically about 1 of those 10 people are moving each month.
Yep.
The thing that I want you guys to understand here as I frame this up is that if I call 100 people this month, only 1 or 2 of those 10 know they're the 1 or 2 that are moving this month or next month. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when you're in bold and you see people saying that the average is 3 appointments for every 100 people that they have two-way conversations with, it's a 1 to 2% return. Okay. 50-to-1 ratio from the MREA book is a 2% return.
Right.
Now, if you took that same 100 and you contacted them every single month for the next 12 months, you will actually get 10 deals out of those 100 people. Does that make sense?
You just need to make sure you don't know which month they'll be in, so you contact them every month to make sure you're top of mind.
Exactly. And then let's take it into the next year. If I continue to contact that same 100 core group of people every month for the second year, yep, I'm going to pull 10 more out of those 100, and over 10 years, I will have sold all 100 of those people a house.
Right.
Here's the problem. We all do this shotgun where we call the 100 people, and the next month we do a different 100 people, and the next month we do a different 100 people, and the next month a different 100 people.
Yep.
So what I'm going to pull this back together is when Gary talks about the one thing that will blow your business up. No, and this is whatever business it is. It's not even real estate. This even comes back to the early MREA days when Gary Keller said, we are not in the real estate business. We are in the lead generation business. Nike tennis shoes doesn't do anything different than Keller Williams Real Estate. We all have to have somebody who wants to buy our product or service, and we have to generate that lead to get them interested in buying it. So Nike tennis shoes has to do the same exact thing. So I'll pull this back in, is that the one thing, if you were going to make anything your one thing, it is the follow-up process with everybody you come in contact with, and set up a follow-up system that follows up with them for 10 years. Because you're going to sell every one of them a house.
A 10-year follow-up. So, and I'm a numbers guy, so I grabbed the calculator. If you're watching this live, you see it. And I said, okay, if it's 1 out of 10, or 10 out of 100, that's 10%. And then I took 1 divided by 365 for today out of the entire year, which is 0.27%. So if I were to call 100 people today, I actually have a 0.027% chance that today's the day they need to hear from me. And when you think about it in those terms, people are going, well, gosh, it's not 1 out of 10. Well, no. If you call them every day, it will be. And that's where your follow-up systems can come into play. And then it almost comes, and this is me just being a numbers geek, if I sell 10 of the 100 a house of this year, the next year I only have 90 left. So I'd probably only sell 9 houses and then 8 houses. So you need to keep building and replacing the database as well. So for you guys to sell 100 homes, do you have a max amount of people in your database who you follow up with, or what is that tipping point with the bell curve that it starts actually the more people gets a less return? Do you have that bell curve?
Yeah, so this is what I'm going to share with you guys when I come to town, okay? There's 2 things I want to share here. So the first thing is you probably have a whole bunch of contacts in your database right now. In fact, I challenge people all the time. And actually, here's what I want everybody to do. We're going to do a little bit of a live exercise.
Okay.
Right now, just write down on a piece of paper in front of you about how many contact records you have in your database, okay? And for some people, they may have imported like a whole, tax record of people or whatever. And if you've ever mailed to them with a postcard campaign or anything like that, you can keep them in this number. If you've got really this list in there that you've never talked to them, internet leads are a big deal. Like you might have 1,000 internet leads sitting in your database that you've never ever talked to the person. You don't know if they're still alive or not, if they bought a house or not. You don't necessarily have to count them.
Okay.
But I know when you get out of real estate school, the very first thing they have you do is make a list of 100 to 150 people you know who know you, right? So I know everybody has at least 150 people in their database.
Okay.
But really, realistically, and Rick, you can even answer this as well as I can, working with agents on their businesses, is that most people probably have somewhere between 200, 300 to maybe 500 people in their database, right?
And again, I think a lot of it's how you define the database. Do I have names and numbers, or am I not? And I always, and let me know how you define it. I'll tell people, Brad, if you call them on the phone and they answer, hey, Brad, how are you? Put them there. If they don't know who you are, then they're not truly in the database. Do you have a definition of what defines a great database contact?
Absolutely. And you guys, now listen, this is not going to line up with anything you've been taught in real estate ever, okay? Because, and it's going to all tie back to, this is what I really want to help you understand for that day that I'm with you guys, that afternoon.
Yep.
The database right now may not have a number, may not have an address, may not have an email. It doesn't matter, okay? The very first thing I'm going to share with you guys is 4 simple steps to get everything that's missing into every contact record in your database. And actually, before I even get into that, let me answer your question directly. The definition of a database for me is anybody that I have crossed paths with or want to get in communication with is who's in my database.
Okay.
Here's what it is not. What it is not is just a database of the people I've sold a house to, past clients, and it is not only who I've put those 1 or 2% out of the 100. My database is the 100 people that I dialed the number to go into my database, and I will keep dialing their number until I get them on the phone. Because if I'm going to take the energy to get any kind of a list of 100 people, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get into a relationship with all 100, because I know this. Those 100, I've got 10 sales this year, 10 sales next year, 10 sales a year after. I've got 100 sales in those 100.
Right.
So if you just added 5 people to your database every single day, 5 days a week, listen to these numbers. And this comes back to what Rick was talking about on the numbers. So let me tell you the math that he just gave you. If I just today, while I'm out, I interact with 5 human beings that day, not 5 people buying or selling real estate. Forget about that, okay?
Living, breathing.
Forget about it.
Yep.
Because 100 people, they're all moving sometime over the next 10 years. So the next 5 people that I come in communication with on this planet go in my database. That's who my database is.
Okay.
And if I did that 5 days a week, that's 25 people a week. It's 100 people a month. It's 1,200 people a year. Now, let's take the math. If I just did 5 people a day, every day, not 5 people buying or selling, just 5 anybody's a day, and I stay in touch with them, that's 1,200 people a year that I came in contact with. Maybe, just drop a note. It doesn't have to be about real estate. It's just like, hey, it was nice meeting you today. Look forward to keeping in touch.
Sure.
That's all my notes say, right?
Sure.
Got me there? That should equate to 120 sales a year. 1,200 times 10% is 120 deals. Divided by 12 is 10 sales a month. Brad Korn sells 100 homes a year, every year on autopilot. Where do you think that comes from, right?
5 conversations a day.
It's 100 sales a year, every year. And guys, that's 2 days a week. It's not. The thing that I hope people understand, and what I hope doesn't happen, is they're like, well, why is he only selling 100 houses a year? Because I only work 2 days a week, and I do this. I get to travel. I get to coach. I have other revenue streams that if I unplugged all those revenue streams and I just did real estate, it'd probably be 300 sales a year. But here's my leverage piece, is that I can help 100 agents get 100 sales a year. And now Brad Korn's not selling 100 homes a year. He's selling 10,000 homes a year. See what I'm saying?
Yep. It's compound interest.
So that's where my leverage piece is. I love the fact that that is on autopilot, and I can count on it every single year. This year, we will actually have our best year ever, and we have the least amount of people that we've ever had on our team. 3 people. We're already at 60 closed sales. We're going to hit 120, 130 sales this year.
Yeah, you're doing 12 a month. Good for you.
Yeah, the most I've ever sold in a year with 8 people on my team was 125 sales. So you can see where the efficiency and the systems have gotten us, and that's what you will have a really good perspective of when I leave Florida on I think it's the 9th.
July
Right?
9th.
I keep
Yeah.
the 9th.
So I'm getting my head around this so I can understand it, defend it, honor it, and everything else. You said 5 a day, but these aren't necessarily 5 new people because you need to contact them consistently. So if I'm doing 5 a day, is it 100 people, and then July 1st, the same 100 people again, August 1st, the same 100? Because then I'm only getting 10. So help me with that, because you can't just talk to them once, because you only have that 0.0027% chance. So
Yes,
how often do you have to talk to somebody to get them cemented in your head?
Yeah, so what you guys are I'm going to unveil what you already know is there, but nobody's really explained it in a way that you can systematize and automate your business. And it's in the campaign and action plan side of your database.
Okay.
And I live by a couple of good rules. The one that I'm referencing right now is if I have to remember to do it, it is not going to happen. Okay? That's what Brad Korn, I live by that rule. If I have to remember to do it, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So what I did was I used these campaigns and action plans to set up a series of events for the entire year to pop up in front of my face and go, hey, it's been 3 months since you talked to this person you met 3 months ago. Pick up the phone and call them today.
Okay.
My system says call.
Okay. And
it tells me again in 6 months, and it tells me again in 9 months, and it tells me again in 12 months. Now remember, I'm calling somebody I met 3 months ago, but they weren't buying or selling or anything then, or I would already be working with them, and they would already be now a past client.
Sure.
So the action plans and campaigns create a system that reminds me to stay in touch with people. And if you even Google Bold 33 Touch on YouTube, Bold 33 Touch and Korn, K-O-R-N, you'll see a video pop up. And again, I'm watching you. Bold 33 Touch. Okay, that's awesome, dude, that you're popping that up there so they can see that.
Yeah.
Now, this does reference, I might, like right there, right on top, Coach Korn, 33 Touch. It may actually reference me as a MAPS coach, and I just want you guys to know that I am a business coach, and I did coach for MAPS for a couple of years, and Diana, and Brad Korn's kind of running all over the place like a crazy wild child, and Diana's very focused on where MAPS is going. So we love each other. We just decided that Brad would probably not be a good complement for MAPS coaching. It has nothing to do with MAPS coaching.
Sure.
It's just I'm running around doing a lot of things, and Diana's very focused on MAPS coaching, make sure we're bringing the best coaching we can to KW agents. So anyway, that video may reference MAPS coaching. I just want you to know that Brad Korn is not a MAPS coach, but I'm still coaching people.
Okay.
But what I talk about in there is we have 4 phone calls built in throughout the year. Like I just said, at month 3, month 6, month 9, and month 12, the system will tell me to call this person. Now, and I'll come back to that one second because I want to really pull this all together for everybody to comprehend what I'm talking about. The other thing that I figured out by doing this and plussing it is that we added in between each of those calls a personal touch back to social media.
Okay.
So here's what this looks like. I go into my dashboard every day of my database, and again, this doesn't matter what database it is. Doesn't matter what database it is. If it's got a campaign or action plan system built into it, that's what you're looking for.
Okay.
So I go to my dashboard every day, and it says you have 5 calls to make, you have 6 to-dos, you have whatever. It tells me what to do. So this is my lead generation time, my 2 hours of lead generation time is I go to that and I knock out my calls and I knock out my to-dos. So here's what happens. I meet somebody, they go on an 8x8. The 8x8 is 8 touches in 8 weeks, and I mix up the mediums. Again, we're going to get really into detail on this when I come,
Sure.
but the more mediums you mix in, don't do an all email.
Okay.
We already know that doesn't work. E-Edge rolled out with an all-email 33 touch. It doesn't work. You guys didn't move any bigger than a 1% return.
Right.
Okay. Now, our businesses did grow because of E-Edge, because we started staying in touch with people more consistently, but it still only pulled out about a 1% return.
Yep.
We're going to move you guys to a 12-to-2 ratio, which is 6 to 8 times more business. I mean, you cannot. I'm not talking about doubling your business or tripling. I'm talking about 6 to 8 times more business from the same people.
Right.
So here's the way that works. The 8x8 runs through the plan. It ends. The system says start the next plan. Well, what do we know happens after an 8x8? 33 touch, right? So the 33 touch has letters and emails mixed in there. But a month and a half after that plan starts, a to-do pops up and says, go find them on social media and send them a message.
Okay.
And then a month and a half later, which is now 3 months after they've been on the plan, it says to call them. And then a month and a half later, it says to do, go find them on social media. And then a month and a half later, it says call. Everything else running in between, I may never see that person's name, never see the piece that goes out, whatever it is, whether it's email, letter, that system's running by itself.
Yep.
But what does pop up every month and a half is that I do see that I need to send them a social media piece or I need to make them a call. Right now, everyone on this session and everyone that attends, until you've reconnected with your whole database, those 8 contacts will happen by you every single day until it takes you more than 3 to 4 hours a day to get it done.
Okay.
And by adding the personal touch back in, what you hear Gary talk about, if you go back and listen to his stuff and you really study it at a mastery level, he says one person at some point is not going to be able to keep up with the personal touches.
Correct.
Well, if you're listening to that and you've heard that and you think you need a team to help you make the phone calls and the personal touches, guys, that will not happen for many years. You're talking 5 to 10 years of feeding your database every single day, 5 people a day. You will not have to have somebody make your calls for you until 10 years from now.
Okay.
But in 10 years from now, you will need somebody to make half of those calls or 3/4 of those calls, because your one touch a year will take you 3 to 4 hours a day. Did I explain that pretty well?
You did. So a couple clarity questions for me. I feel that a biggest fear or setback or obstacle for people is not necessarily the time blocking to do it. It's either A, what you just described, the system that says when and how, but even more so what to say, because people can't pick up the phone and just say, hey, Brad, it's Rick again, who do you know wants to buy, sell, or invest. So what do these touches sound like, even on social media? What does that sound like so people don't have that as a limiting belief?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is exactly, I'm going to tell you guys, what you've been taught your whole career as a real estate agent is to find the next piece of business, right? So here's what I don't want you to hear, that scripts are not necessary. Scripts are very necessary. You need to nail your script so you know when that opportunity shows up, you know which script to use and how to get to the point that you need them at as quickly as possible. But what I'm also going to tell you is those 4 calls a year, honestly, it doesn't matter if you talk about real estate or don't talk about real estate.
Okay.
Guys, and here's the thing I want to make a point clear too, because one of the things I'm going to share with you guys when I come that you will walk away from my session with, this is what I promise you will walk away with. 4 simple steps to touch every single person in your database from A to Z to get reconnected. You're going to send them a letter that's going to set up the phone call so you'll make the call. Because this is exactly what this is. It's like, well, I haven't talked to these people in 3 years since I sold them a house. What am I going to talk about? I don't want to call up and go, hey, are you thinking about buying or selling? Well, who's the next person you know that's buying or selling? So you got to get connected with people first. So we're going to send a letter that just says, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while, just realized I haven't done that, and I realize how important relationships are, and I'm going to call you in the next few days. The system pops up 3 days later and says, call this person. You may not even know that the letter went out, but it says call this person because they just got the reconnect letter to reconnect.
Yep.
You're going to call them, and then a to-do is going to pop up right behind it, and that to-do is going to sit there in your database until you do it, and it's going to say write them a handwritten note.
Okay.
And then the 4th step is going to be start them on the next plan.
Okay.
For a lot of people, that's going to be putting them now on an 8x8 and then moving them onto a 33 touch, and you're going to have personal touches built into those when we get done. So that 4 simple step plan, when you call them on the reconnect plan, guys, you can't talk about real estate. Do not talk about real estate. Just find out what's going on in their life. You should do very little talking.
Okay.
They should do, oh, the kids are doing great. You're like, this is your absorption thing.
Yep.
So here's what the answer to the question is, all those calls that pop up. So I'm on a 33 touch. It's been 3 months. This person's name shows up on my call list. One of 2 things is going to happen. Either I look at the list and go, I just start calling them. Hey, what's up? It's Brad. They're like, oh, hey, Brad, what's going on? Yeah, it's been a little while since we talked. I know. Yeah, whatever.
Yep.
Well, there are 2 things that are going to happen. Either that's all that's going to happen is I'm going to call, how's it going? Was just thinking of you, and they're going to say fine. Now, I do not have to use any scripts right there like, so, hey, it's been a few months. Are you thinking about buying or selling real estate? You know why I don't have to do that? Because I'm connected with them.
They know
and if they were going to buy or sell real estate, I don't have to ask them, right?
Yep.
When I call them, say, how you doing? It's been a few months. What have you been up to? Oh, work. It's like they're going to say, hey, Brad, it's a good thing you called me today because my sister is getting married, and I know they're going to have to buy a house. Can you hook them up? Right? Or they're going to say, hey, I forgot to call you. We're thinking about moving. What really is going to happen once you're connected with people is if they decide they're going to move 30 days after I've connected with them, they'll call you in 30 days. They won't even make it to the 3-month phone call. So here's the best part about this, guys. This is why I say this is the one thing that you want to focus on is your database and reconnecting with your relationships, because you don't even have to be a realtor. They already know you're a real estate agent. If they hear from you 4 times a year, you never, ever have to say, this is Brad Korn over at Keller Williams Real Estate. Are you thinking about buying or selling? You don't have to use those scripts. So you get to just call and talk to people, and they're going to say stuff. Now, the second thing that could happen on that phone call is we had a period about 3 years ago where the houses in the $300,000 to $450,000 price range were selling for about $250,000 to $275,000. Right? I bought one of them, okay, 3 years ago.
Okay.
I took my own advice because my whole script at that time was when I would call, hey, how's everything going? So here's the same 3-month call, just a different, my script that year, that month is about the shortage of homes in this range.
Yep.
So I'm just calling them, hey, how's it going? Good. What's work? Okay, blah, blah. How's everything been going? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, the reason I called today, today's call is about business. Do you have a minute to help me? Does that sound familiar, Rick?
Sounds familiar. That's a step 1 of bold.
Step 1 of bold. So that's why I say scripts are important. So it's like, hey, today's call is about business. Now, I may have talked to them 3 times prior to this.
Sure.
But right now we have a shortage of homes and they're selling super cheap. So I'll say, hey, today's call is about business. Do you have a couple of minutes? Well, yeah, what's up?
Yep.
It's like, dude, I am noticing in the 300 to 450 price range, these houses are selling for like 250. Do you know anybody that's living in like a $150,000 to $175,000 house that would like to bump up to a $250,000 house? I mean, their payment's going to be the same.
Right.
Now, so that was the same thing as saying, do you know who do you know that's buying or selling real estate? But it's a totally different concept now, because now I'm like, do you know anybody that lives in a $150,000 to $175,000 house that would like to live in a bigger house? Well, what's happening in their brain while they're on the phone is they're going through their little Rolodex. And here's what will happen every time you do this, Rick, is you're doing that, and they're like, I don't know anybody in a 175, but I do know my buddy at work's in one of those $400,000 houses, and he was thinking about selling.
Mm.
Well, great. I need to talk to that guy to have a strategy to figure out how to beat this market, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's going to happen is it gets them fishing through their mind, and then it starts turning on the real estate radar, and now what we've got is what Diana teaches us in Bold about reticular activator system.
Yep.
Their reticular activator's on, and now they're noticing real estate everywhere, not just what I specifically asked for. So here's our problem. We want to ask for something specific, and really all we have to do is you can ask for something specific, but you'll get the general response. I said that wrong. What we want to do is go help and save the world.
Right.
Do you know anybody who's thinking about buying or selling real estate? That answer, 99.99999% of the time, gets us, I can't think of anybody right now.
0.0027% chance.
Yeah, right, exactly. But if I go the other route and I say, do you know anybody that's in a $175,000, $250,000 house? And they're like, well, I don't know anybody there, but I do know. See, it actually gets you a better result by getting real specific, because they will know somebody. And then you drop them a note. Hey, thanks for trying to think of somebody. If you come across anybody talking about real estate the next week, get their name and number, give me a call.
Well, I'll tell you what. So I just left Coach's Skills Camp, my third time there, and Diana is the queen of questions, right? And they always say, if you don't like the answer you're getting, then fix your questions. Ask better questions. And who do you know who wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate is a weak question. It's very vague, and therefore you're going to get a very vague answer. You got very specific in your questioning, therefore you got a very specific answer. And I think that
Well, actually, I got a more general response out of the more specific answer.
Well, I guess they narrowed in, right? If you talk to who in your entire world needs help, they're thinking entire world, right? And they're not narrowing into people. What you just said reminds me, I had Mike Bastian as a coach for a while, and he shared with me from a recruiting standpoint, from a team leader standpoint, of how do other realtors see me? And this talks about relationships of, at the beginning, I'm annoying. I'm just a number, just trying to tell and take advantage. And this is when, kind of reminds me, if you meet someone in an open house and they don't know you from Adam, you're just another realtor. And I share this stair step with people, so let me know if it's that same.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
Make sure you're good. After that, the whole objective is to be a nice guy, right? Build a relationship and get to know that, hey, I'm a nice guy. So in your database, if they don't even like you, correct me if I'm wrong, your conversation to be around, hey, I'm a nice guy, you can like me, right? Once that, I'm a resource, they see value in what I do. Once that, they see me as a catalyst to their goals. And once that, then they're going to use you and refer you out to their friends and family. And I tell this to people all the time, that it doesn't change whether you're in a team leader position or running your database, that if you have a bunch of people who are down here who barely know you and they don't like you, let alone see value in you, you can't ask for this home run. You've got to be able to just take it one step at a time. And that's what it sounds like you just said, is don't always ask for the business, just build a rapport. And don't,
you know what? Let me put this into real world perspective for you, because now that I'm on the coaching and training side, I just had a video posted by a really great guy that's gone through. I have a course that I created. My MAPS coach helped me write a course on all this stuff, and it's a 16-week Make the Phone Ring Again course.
Yep.
So I've had some agents go through that. Well, William May, and I can't remember what market he's in right now, but he's gone through the course. He just posted a really great video, and I want to put what you just said into a perspective that everybody on this webinar can understand. Okay. And what he said was, there's a lot of people training out there who, they get up on stage and they're bragging about their business. We say bragging, but they're really talking about how great they are and how much business they do and all that stuff. And he finds a lot of those people really aren't necessarily doing the stuff they're teaching. He said there's a core group of people that it's not really bragging or whatever, but they're just like really trying to help people. So let me just tell you exactly what Rick said in your world that you can understand, and I'm going to pull it right back to how you are the same person.
Okay.
So I've got this great coaching program, and I'm going to charge you $12,000 a month, and I guarantee you will make $120,000 in commissions for my $12,000 a month you're going to pay me, right?
Okay.
So you give me the list of everybody on this webinar, and Brad Korn just sends this list out today. And I say, guys, seriously, because you were on Rick's webinar, I'm only going to charge you $12,000 a month, but I will guarantee you will make $120,000 a month from this.
Okay.
And if I sent that out to every single person on this webinar right now as a blast email with a link to sign up, how many people do you think would sign up?
Very few. Yep.
None.
Yep.
Nobody will, right? But if I took this list and I called every one of these people, and well, first of all, I send you just an email and say, hey, watch this webinar 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
Send me back what your top 3 ideas are and what you want to do, right? And then I send you an email or a letter or a postcard that has, hey, this was one of the tips that came out of the webinar. Here was another tip. Have you done this? Here was somebody who had success with this tip, and here's how they got it in place. And you just get that from me for the next few months.
Okay.
But somewhere along the line in the next month or two, the phone rings, and it's Brad Korn, and you're sitting there, and you're like, hey, it's Brad Korn. Brad Korn? Yeah, you were on the webinar, and I just want to check. I've been sending you some tips and stuff. Have you done anything with any of those? I mean, they're freaking out. I do this to agents all the time. I mean, this is what I do, right?
Yep.
So I call you, and I go, here, let me help you. What did you do anything with step 3 or step 4? What was your best idea? Great. I've got that postcard coming out next month. Now I want you to call me back or shoot me an email and let me know what you put in place.
Okay.
And then I call you again and go, did you have success? Yeah, I got a sale from it. Great. Will you share that, right? So we talk for the next 6 months. You put 3 or 4 or 5 sales on the books because of this one thing that you implemented. Now I call you up and go, hey, I just wanted you to know I am launching a little new program. I mean, it is one-on-one coaching. It's a heck of an investment, but I'm telling you, the return on it is 10 times. I won't even launch anything unless it's a 10 times return, right? So I want you to be the first to know about this. How many more people do you think might figure out a way to come up with 12 grand, right? Or at least would sign up for now the $1,000 a month program. Okay, guys, this is what you're doing with everybody in your marketplace. You've got to give value. When we say come from contribution with your local community, you need to be the person that's telling them what to invest in their house, not to invest. I'm telling you, when somebody is deciding to rip their deck off of the back of their house because it's falling apart and they call you first, I mean, they got to do it, right?
Yep.
But before they do it, they call you and say, hey, I'm about to rip my deck off this thing, and I'm just telling you, this is my real world right now. My deck is trashed.
Sure.
But before I do that, I always call my realtor to find out, all right, we're replacing our deck. What do you think we should do? You know, now you've got
that's when they trust you. And it sounds like you went back to Michael Mayer's 7-level communication of identifying.
Michael and I are both from Kansas City. He was from the far west side of Kansas City, and I was from the far east.
Yep.
And if you read the 7 levels of communication, he talks about EVT restaurant.
Yep.
That is actually EBT restaurant, and it's right on the state line of Missouri and Kansas.
Cool.
And Michael and I sat in that elevator booth every month, and this is how we built our business.
Cool.
So what I love about Michael and I is he's the piece that shows you how to build the relationship and the connection, and I'm the machine side of keeping up with it all.
Okay.
It's really a really cool compliment.
That is really cool. Well, I know that time's of essence, and I appreciate you again looking in the background so you have some conversations. We're going to talk about how we can get people signed up and really promote you to see more of this on July 9th. Before we do that, what would you say are the mistakes that you've made or you see most people make as they are, whether brand new or a veteran who is redefining this machine? What are some pitfalls and speed bumps that you see over and over again with people?
Yeah, you know, the pitfall is we only bring to the radar somebody who says they might be buying or selling right now. And I'm telling you, every 10 people you meet from now on, 9 of them are not. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, that's too high of a return. The next 100 people you meet, only 1 or 2 or 3 of them are thinking of doing something, right, but the other 97 people will be doing something. So where I think we make the mistake is we spend so much energy, and I call it the grindstone. It is the grindstone of going and finding the next piece of business every single day, calling all these strangers. I have not met anybody that loves calling 100 strangers every day, 5 days a week. Now, even when you look at the bold videos and you've got Chris Heller and you got Dave Norberg, I mean, they do it because they know what they need to do to get the numbers they need to get to make their goals hit. But I'm telling you, Chris Heller does not jump out of bed and go, all right, I am looking forward to calling another 100 strangers today.
Right.
He comes in and does what he has to do, and I call it the grindstone, but it works, right? 99.9% of the people are never going to be able to do that for a long period of time. They're not going to be disciplined enough to do it. So if you're going to take the energy to meet anybody, turn it into a relationship. And when you come from contribution and you just help people, guys, you may help 97 people get hooked up with a deck guy, with a termite guy, with a paint guy, with a carpet guy. I mean, you become the home resource. A refi guy, so, you know, we wait around for these loan officers to give us some business, or they wait around for us to give them business, where you could just make a call every single year of, hey, I want to analyze your current interest rate and see if we can save you $200 a month, because that's what I coach loan officers to do. It's like, don't wait for the realtor to call you with business. You get their database and you call their clients every year and you drop their interest rate a quarter or a half or a full % every single year, and as they save money, they're going to know that you were responsible for that connection. So it's really about stop trying to sell real estate, okay? Be a realtor and be very knowledgeable at what you're doing, but be a relationship-based guy and go generate the phone calls. Don't wait for the phone calls to come to you.
Love it. I love it. All right, so to wrap it up, if anybody has some questions out there, go ahead and type it into the question spot. That way I can unmute you. And until then, Brad, what are some of the favorite books you've read or principles you live by or classes that you've attended and or you always attend every year? What are some of those educational points for you to see your growth?
Well, obviously, and again, this is coming from, you know, it's not like I'm a MAPS coach or anything, but when you put like that make the phone ring again stuff in place with like bold or something, you're going to get a way bigger return because it teaches you how to capture all that stuff. So Michael Mayer, 7L book is one of the best books for relationships.
Yep.
The other couple of books that I think are really good is there's one, okay, I'm just like, my brain just fried because now I want to tell you about it. It's by Jeff Olson, and it's Olsen, and it's, oh my gosh, dude, I've read this book so many times. I'm just like, I'm in ICU waiting room mode right now.
Let me see what you got over here.
Jeff Olson, pull it up. It should be
NDE, the slight edge.
OLSE, it's slight edge.
Slight edge.
The slight edge is the one thing. So you got Michael Mayer 7L, the slight edge by Jeff Olson, and the one thing. That is the core. And what they talk about in the slight edge, and it really does come down to the one thing, and I'll kind of clarify this, but the slight edge talks about is that what is the little things that happen every single day to make successful people successful. And one of the things that he talks about in there is it's as simple as at lunchtime. You got one person that decides to grab a slice of pizza, and you got another person that decides to get a salad,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Today, neither one of those people are going to die.
Yep.
In fact, if tomorrow the same thing happens, they're not going to die. The next day, they're not going to die. The next day, they're not going to die. 20 years from now, the person that ate pizza all day long is going to have a different health story than the person who ate salad every day, right? So it's our choices every day that we make that don't, like, if you don't make your calls today, guys, you're not going to be out of business tomorrow.
Right.
But how many days do we not do 2 hours of lead generation activity, right, every single day? So when you skip a day, skip 2 days, skip 3 days, or more importantly, life happens, right? Somebody gets sick, you get sick, you're in a hospital. I mean, guys, it's like I'm in a waiting room. I've got to keep lead generating every day. Now, I'm not going to, at the expense of my wife's support, do that.
Right.
But I'm telling you, there's 20 minutes when I'm sitting here where nothing's happening. I just went and saw her that I could now be very on purpose and make something happen for the next 20 minutes before the next guest shows up, and then I can help them. And it's just about being very on purpose every day. And John Maxwell calls it the 5 whacks at the tree. You can go out and if you just picture the biggest redwood forest tree, and I tell you to knock it down, say, I'm going to give you $10 million if you knock this tree down. Many of you are going to go out and just start whack, 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 whack.
Sure.
And you're going to be sore. You're going to wake up one day. You're going to sleep through one day. I mean, you're just going to take you forever. It doesn't matter when you get the $10 million, right? So if you just go out there and hit it 5 times today, 5 times tomorrow, 5 times the next day, eventually the tree is going to fall, and you'll have $10 million.
Sure.
So it's about that 5 whacks at the tree every single day, and you won't even realize you did it. In fact, you'll probably already have 5 other revenue streams bringing in $10 million by the time that falls.
Cool.
That's kind of my life story.
There's the books. All right. Well, tomorrow, actually, we've got your partner with Tony coming on there. Have you already done this with Tony as a combo package, like Georgia Alpazar set you guys up?
Have we done what now?
On July 9th. Is this like a tour you guys are doing? Is this the first time you've been together?
No, I'm so excited because I don't think I've actually worked with Tony on anything in particular. This is just something that Georgia put together, and she's been wanting to get this database stuff to you guys for a long time. So I'm excited about being with Tony on the day. But no, it's not like an organized tour or anything. It was just total coincidence that we're going to both be there for that day.
Very cool. So I'm going to be speaking with him just like this tomorrow at 3:30 to really talk about everything he's doing, and it's been called the Summer Sizzle. So anyone out there who's watching this or doing this, obviously the link is not live on here yet. Go ahead and shoot me an email, and you can get me just at rick@rickbosley.com, and that way we can get you guys registered. It's $99, which to me is, I've already got that value on a phone call from across the country. So that's a small...
Well, that 4-step plan that you will walk out of my session with will make you a 10 times return on that. That's what, $1,000? It's probably going to be more than that because you will pick up a sale or 2. Now this is based on 500 people going through just the Reconnect section of that course. They will pick up a sale or 2 over the next 3 months if they just put that plan in place when they leave the seminar. So I'm not even going to sizzle you. I'm going to burn your butt. You're going to get burnt, baby.
I look forward to it. It's the Florida heat, ready for it. Well, Brett, I appreciate you staying to it. I know you've got a whirlwind in your life, and my prayers are with you and your family and your wife as you guys are going through this. Anything I can do for you, please let me know. Again, guys, if you have anything that you can do back for Brad, whether it's just reaching out or seeing him on July 9th and also continue to be part of his database and him some business and his team up there in Kansas City, Missouri, then I'd love to be able to pay that back for it as well. Anything I can do for you in the immediate future, Brad?
You know what? Right now, this is kind of timely to the situation, is just Google Sonia Korn prayer on Facebook, and pray. I would love your prayers for her healing and to remind me to stay focused on, who's important and put my trust in God. So thank you guys.
SONYA. There it is.
What's that?
I got it pulled up. Here we go.
You can keep up to date on where Sonia is and what we're going through and the updates. And man, the power of prayer has been so amazing so far. So I'm just going to keep pulling everybody I can into that thing and let him know that we need this girl back.
You got it, man. It's the Miracle Man from Bold. So happy thoughts in your way. Brad, thanks again, and I'll see you in a few weeks.
Thank you.
I'll see you next week. Yeah. Take care, bud.
Yes.
Bye now.
Yeah. Bye.